If you're a fan of the KonoSuba light novels, manga or anime, then chances are you'll know who Megumin is. Despite not being the protagonist of the KonoSuba series, she is arguably the most popular character in the fantasy comedy. Megumin's popularity is reflected not only in the fact that she is the only main character to have her own spin-off series called Explosion, so named as a humorous nod to her insistence of putting all her skill points on only one explosion magic spell, but also the only pop-up parade figure to have accessories included, at least on this first take on the infamous Gang of Four in KonoSuba. The inclusion of accessories for the Good Smile Company pre-painted figure of Megumin is reflected in the size of the box, which is considerably larger than the average dimensions for one containing a standard size figure of the Pop-Up Parade lineup. Through the now familiar see-through sides of a standard size Pop-Up Parade box, I can just about make out what those accessories are, namely a wizard's staff and hat. On the lower third of the front side of the box, you'll find the minimalistic cardboard insert containing the figure's name and anime series it's from. This minimalistic cardboard insert is geared towards allowing maximum visual access of the pre-painted figure, which for dedicated figure collectors like myself are preferable to photo images displayed on fully opaque packaging found on the lower tier crane price figures. Only the bottom and back of the Pop-Up Parade packaging is completely covered up by cardboard inserts, with the latter providing perhaps the required regulatory consumer information. But of course, all the unobstructed visual access of the figure one can get from outside the clear box packaging pales in comparison to actually getting the figure in our hands for a close-up look. So let's get on with the unboxing and unwrapping process with just the natural ASMR-like sounds and some background music. I'll resume my commentary during her once-over, during which I'll discuss what I think of the figure at first glance. If you would like to skip ahead to that part, please use the timestamps below. With all parts making up the Pop-Up Parade figure of Megumin finally free of plastic packaging, it's time to take a close look at all these parts individually before they are put together for the full 360-degree view. Starting off with Megumin's wizard hat, which technically is supposed to be black, but here it's in dark umber with a yellow trim and tip, as well as a red and yellow band plus round patches. As a miniature painter, I myself have used dark umber as a replacement for black, as color-wise it's less dull. Here we have Megumin's wizard staff, which has a simple yet effective design with an extremely clean paintwork that unfortunately gives out an incomplete vibe for the white cloth bindings on the handle due to its lack of shading. Meanwhile, Megumin herself at this early stage of my quick once-over looks like she has an excellent sculpt quality to her with lots of details and a clean and more varied paintwork. Such characteristics are key to mitigating paintwork without shadows and highlights, as it tricks the eye to see color gradations where there are none. More importantly, this pre-painted figure of Megumin from the KonoSuba series bears a good resemblance to her animated character, not only in facial details, but also in sculpted details and overall color scheme. And she continues the trend set by the earlier duo of Kazuma and Aqua, in that Max Factory is producing great KonoSuba themed figurines for the mid-tier category, which treads a fine line between being budget-friendly and having above-average paintwork and sculpt quality, as you can see here. And also in keeping with what we have seen for both Kazuma and Aqua, Megumin has a similar clear plastic hexagonal base, this time in vivid red hues to reflect her Crimson Demon's origin, which is a tribe of mages. Normally, the assembly of standard size pop-up parade figures are straightforward tasks of attaching a fully formed figure onto the base, but Megumin is an exception to the norm due to her wizard hat and staff accessories, and as such, she actually comes with assembly instructions, albeit a simple one-page guide. The guide also comes with a warning about color migration, in which paint transfers from one part to another, which incidentally is also why you see paper or plastic sheets placed in between parts when they are packaged. Apart from the issue of color migration, there is also the fragile-looking fingers on Megumin's left hand to consider when the staff is attached to it. Though in this case, there is enough flex and pliability on her plastic fingers to allow the staff to snap in place with neither damage to the fingers nor color migration from the staff to the fingers and vice versa, at least as far as I can tell. The fitting is tight and secure, hence the staff does not move easily once attached. But unfortunately, the same cannot be said for Megumin's wizard hat, which can only be loosely placed on top of her head. Positioning of the hat is helped by the grooves on the back of the insides of the hat that help align the hat in its intended orientation. Due to this loose placement of the hat, it's better for me to go ahead and attach the Megumin pre-painted figurine onto her base first before finally placing the hat onto her head. And even then, as expected for such a loose-fitting hat, you can see me holding the hat in place with my fingers to prevent it from falling off when the entire figure is being slanted somewhat horizontally. However, at the end of the day, the loose fit of the hat shouldn't be an issue because after all, the pop-up parade figure will be displayed standing upright. So this concludes the assembly phase, and I'll move on now to her full 360-degree view. In keeping with the dimensions of all the Pop-Up Parade pre-painted figures of KonoSuba characters I've reviewed so far, Megumin reaches a height close to 18 centimeters when measured from the bottom of her feet to the top of her head, which is similar to what we have seen for Kazuma and Aqua. But within these similar vertical dimensions, Megumin packs a much greater punch visually thanks mainly to the accessories she wields in the form of her wizard staff and hat. Coupled with a pose that seems to show her about to cast her infamous explosion spell, all captured via an excellent sculpt quality as well as clean and accurate paintwork, makes for a figurine that closely resembles the animated character equivalent from KonoSuba in almost every way. Both the wizard's hat and staff fit in seamlessly into the flow and lines of the pre-painted figure, thus making Megumin's pose look natural and free-flowing. More than just being the best KonoSuba figure in the Pop Up Parade series so far, Megumin is by far the most impressive standard-size Pop Up Parade figure in my collection to date in terms of complexity, although admittedly that's not really saying much when considering the relatively small collection from the series that I've unboxed and reviewed. But it's a fact that's still worth stating, considering I do have a fair amount of standard-size Pop Up Parade figurines in my collection that have yet to be unboxed, and their visibility via Goodsmart Company's clear plastic packaging reinforces my view about the Megumin figure's complexity. In terms of color scheme, Megumin consists mainly of pure black or dark umber as a form of lighter black, red, orange, yellow, light brown, white, off-white, as well as skin tones. This color scheme is consistent with colors seen on her anime counterpart. Paintwork is extremely clean with no messy overlaps between sections, albeit with a lack of color gradation. An absence of shadows and highlights makes for a flat look color-wise. This is particularly obvious on the white wrappings on the staff and the off-white bindings on her right leg. Megumin, to be fair, isn't completely devoid of shading on her paintwork. Both her cheeks have red blush applied on her face, with sufficient details to score it highly on the likeness factor to the KonoSuba character. And it is at this extreme close-up view of Megumin's upper half that you begin to truly appreciate Max Factory's attention to detail in recreating a look that stays true to Megumin in her role as an Archwizard of the Crimson Demons, which is a tribe of mages living in the Crimson Demon Village. Foremost to recreating that look is of course accurate facial details, from the intense stare of her crimson-colored eyes to her slanted eyebrows and pursed lips, as well as non-facial details like her hand gesture and the way she's holding her staff. All of this as she's about to cast her infamous explosion spell. These wonderful details extend to the accurately sculpted and painted wizard's attire and accessories, which had the appropriate color scheme Megumin is best associated with, namely crimson, yellow, and black or dark umber. Megumin's hat, if you remember, fits loosely atop her head, yet it fits snugly enough that it doesn't fall over when displayed in its intended upright position that you're seeing here, thanks in part to the grooves on the back of the insides of her hat that complements the sculpted shape of her hair. Another nice detail on this Pop-Up Parade pre-painted figures ensemble is the red orb on Megumin's staff that has been designed to look like it's floating within the curved space at the top half of the staff, thanks to a small piece of clear plastic rod. On Megumin's lower half, orange is added to the color scheme, which on her boots make for a nice contrast to the bright reds of the hexagonal display base. The silver on her belt buckle is also a nice touch that adds a shine to the whole ensemble, pardon the pun. The only other colors I haven't mentioned can be seen on the figure's lower half, that is, the off-white bindings on almost the entire right leg and the white wrappings around the handle of the wizard's staff. Due to their light neutral hues, the lack of shading is particularly pronounced on both these sections, less so for the off-white leg bindings. As for the positioning of her legs, they do the job of supporting the pose that she has, namely that of a wizard about to cast a spell. Befitting Megumin's mantle as the most popular character in KonoSuba, as voted for in most fan polls, though Aqua does come in first sometimes to be fair, Megumin is the most accessorized and complex figure in the Pop Up Parade lineup of KonoSuba pre-painted figures and in my emitted still small collection. Both accessories, namely the wizard's hat and staff, fit well aesthetically with Megumin's pose and complement her action that looks like she's about to cast the explosion spell. That, coupled with accurate colors on her paintwork and equally accurate facial details, result in a pre-painted figure that highly resembles Megumin, the Archwizard of the KonoSuba series. It may seem a trivial thing, yet the likeness factor is arguably the key characteristic that can make or break a collectible figure. In this case, it does the former, which is good. Added to that is an extremely clean paintwork that is detailed and varied enough to mitigate a lack of shadows and highlights except for parts of her skin tone. In case you were wondering, my ongoing gripe with unpainted fingernails is sadly still unresolved, and Megumin's nails remain in their original molded colors. That is, they remain unpainted. All in all, the positives of this pre-painted figure of Megumin from KonoSuba still far outweighs its negatives, resulting in one of the best Pop-Up Parade standard size figures I've seen in quite a while. As such, Good Smart Company and Max Factory's version of Megumin is, in my opinion, deserving of a rating of Diamond or A rank, the best rank yet given for a Pop-Up Parade pre-painted figure based on a character from the KonoSuba anime series. If you had room for only one mid-tier pre-painted figure that's based on a KonoSuba character, then I wholeheartedly recommend that you let it be the Megumin you see here. Personally, I won't be happy until I have the entire gang in my collection. And so far, the Pop-Up Parade figures of KonoSuba characters have all been pretty decent, just with Megumin outshining Kazuma and Aqua so far. In my next video, I'll be getting my hands on the last party member of the infamous quartet, namely Darkness, the heroic Crusader Knight in KonoSuba, so please stay tuned for that. As we have come to the end of this video, I would like to thank you for watching the review of Megumin, and as always, stay safe, be well, and be happy.